Hi, you have Chris and Eli here from Landlord Gurus again. Today we are going to be talking about the use of house rules in managing a rental property. So there are a couple of reasons that we think it's a good idea to have a set of house rules that you develop for any one of your rental properties, and it might be slightly different, property to property. One of the reasons I think to use house rules is so that you have thought through the situation at a given property. Let's say there's a shared yard or shared access that requires that you establish how people use things, or it might be a utilities or that type of thing. But so that's one of the reasons, and that's not going to be in your average lease that you get from property management software or a rental housing association. And so it's a good idea to have that as thought out and documented.
These are generally things that, from what it sounds like, Eli, are things that are a little bit uncommon but are unique to the property, where the tenant may, either right off the bat or at some point down the road be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this, or how is this handled? And I don't know if we talked about it. It's not in the lease. Is that
Right.
kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, yeah. Either that is kind of a little bit non-standard, or the other thing is things that you really want to hammer home. And you want to make sure that even if some of this, we'll go through some of our ideas, and this is a long list. Most people wouldn't use all of this as house rules, but we're going to talk about the things that you might want to include. Now, some of this will also be in most leases. So, not turning the water heater up, for example, I'm not sure I got it in here, but it should be in there. But it's also in most leases now. But you want to make sure that you're being clear and explicit and not leaving any, room for people to miss things, kind of.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think another benefit of this is, I always tell my tenants, like, you guys are all adults. We're living in this community here. Treat each other with respect. And, basically, if there's stuff going on between people, or somebody has an issue with somebody else, or they're not sure if somebody should be doing this or being quiet or whatever, that
Yeah.
they can kind of, they've got these house rules, or they can go off of and talk to each other like adults and work it out without having to come to the landlord first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
these rules
It's
kind
kind of
of kind of give a little outline for how to go about that as well.
right. And, we were chatting before, and it's kind of the like, don't make me come in there type of thing. Like,
I think you use don't make me pull over this car.
don't make me pull this car. Right. Yeah. Y'all work it out and don't get me involved because you don't want me involved.
Right.
Yeah. Because then I got to figure out I have to figure out enforcing something
Right.
or imposing something. And nobody wants that, especially not me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Well, let's just launch into some of the common house rules. These are the things that we've brainstormed up that we've either used or you might want to be using in a set of house rules. So like Chris was saying, general conduct is kind of the first category, and that goes to just respect and courtesy, how you treating your neighbors the way you'd want to be treated. Noise is a common one that's almost always in a lease document already, but kind of quiet hours when you are basically not audible outside of your unit is very standard, and it's worth enforcing because it's a common issue between tenants. So generally that's 10 p.m. to 7 or 8 a.m. And just establishing that they have it in two different places, it's hard to ignore, hard to miss because not everybody reads the full lease. Um, Apartment maintenance. So this is mostly thinking about interior. You can touch on general cleanliness. I keep your apartment clean, free of pests, dispose of trash regularly, and use appropriate trash and recycling bins, and immediately report any pests. So this touches on the things I want to know about category, which is like if we've got a pest issue going, even if it's there are cockroaches because you don't take your garbage out, they're going to have to pay for a tenant having created that situation would have to pay for any pest remediation service that was required. But I want to know about it because it's got to be handled before it spreads and it becomes a bigger issue. So, and this is a tricky one to word. We're going to set up a download, and check the links below. Once we have it ready for you, we'll have a link there. But like this wording, keep your apartment clean and free of pests, dispose of trash regularly, and use recycling bins. Yeah, it's pretty condescending. So you want to weigh how much you're treating people as kind of like infants, but sometimes that's hard, and sometimes if you feel it's important to say something, you have to take that risk. And
Yeah, and I think that if you just outline it like this is what you need to do and this is what everybody's doing, right? And it's standard for everybody, right?
yeah,
Then I think people understand, right?
yeah,
As long as it's the
exactly.
same wording, that you're treating everybody the same.
Yep, right. And in there with apartment maintenance repairs, report any maintenance issues or damages to management promptly, and do not attempt repairs yourself without prior consent of the landlord. As nice as it is to not have people bug you, they can drill into the wall and have a leak, or you want to at least know what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, and along those same lines, the next set is for alterations. So do not make any alterations to the apartment, such as painting or installing fixtures without prior written consent from the management. Like a lot of people ask me if they can paint or when they first move in. And, this is kind of, some people think that's fine. Some people don't. Personally, I'm fine with them painting, but I want to know, when it's happening, what's happening, what color it's going to be, and things like that. But yeah, some people don't allow it at all. And then along the same lines, cable and satellite dishes, don't allow the cable providers to come in and start drilling holes and installing things or attaching things to the outside of the building, right? That's, again, if that needs to happen, then have that installer speak to the landlord directly.
Yeah, and cable companies have gotten better about requiring consent, but they used to just come along and just drill holes and things.
Yeah, right.
So,
and after the apartment might end up with like 5 different holes and 5 different fixtures in there, and you don't remember what's what after a while.
Exactly.
Next is common areas and the laundry room. So, rules around the use of common areas, again, respect things like lobbies, hallways, laundry rooms, outdoor spaces. Don't leave your personal stuff out there. Don't junk it all up. Don't leave trash around. So, same thing. Cleaning, it's the shared responsibility of the tenant. So clean up any mess you make if you're using that laundry room. And pets, if you allow pets in your property, make sure that you state that the pets need to be under control and that the tenant needs to clean up after them promptly. That includes, when they do their business out in the backyard or in the common space, right? That needs to be cleaned up. Don't just leave it out there. And ensure that the pets don't disturb other tenants. Barking or scratching on doors, things like that.
Or even just rushing up
to,
you could even include a statement on respecting other tenants' personal space. Because not everybody wants to have an animal kind of rushing up to them. Some people get worried. So you could even put language like that in there. Okay, next category is safety and security. And this is an important one. People leaving, might think, well, I'll just leave my windows open. That's up to me. It does impact the building potentially and potentially other people. So it's a good thing to address. Locks and keys. Do not duplicate apartment keys without permission. Report lost keys immediately and keep all entry doors and windows locked. A good side tip here is providing a little piece of PVC or a stick of some kind for sliding windows that people can put in there that stop the window when it's just a little bit open, and it stops it from being opened all the way. That's a useful security device. Emergencies. Familiarize yourself with emergency exits and procedures. In case of emergency, follow building evacuation plans, if there are any. Most of what Chris and I do are small buildings, but where there isn't anything explicit, but know where the fire extinguishers are, know where the escape ladders are, if there are any, that type of thing. Visitors, notify management if you have visitors staying for more than a week and ensure that your visitors adhere to the house rules. This again will generally be in a lease and also kind of the amount of time that a visitor can stay without then becoming somebody who has to pay extra to be there.
Right. So, your lease may say it may be a maximum of 5 days. So in this case, you'd alter your house rules to reflect that time limit as well. So.
That might be one that I might not put in the house rules. I might just leave that in the lease just because there's a balance to be struck in terms of having things aligned.
Right.
But that's the point here, is that you just think about your situation and what's going to work best for you.
Right. And, and then the tenant is responsible for their visitors, right? I think that's the sort of the key takeaway here as well is, whatever that visitor does, that's the responsibility of the tenant. So.
Right. Yeah.
They need to know that.
Okay, so now we've got parking. Parking spaces. Use your designated parking space and do not block access for others, and avoid parking in reserved or unauthorized areas. Another might be one vehicle per parking space, and no tandem parking, for example. I've got a situation where people could park tandem, but then the second car is kind of right out in front of one of the apartments, and it's kind of unsightly. So.
Or if you've got guest parking spaces, in a separate area, you put that in there and make sure that new tenant knows where those are and that their visitors need to park over there.
Or that visitors may only park there for 2 hours at a time or a day, no more than a day or something like that. Right. So depends on the situation. Vehicle maintenance. I think this is a good thing to think about and be explicit about. Do not perform major vehicle repairs or leave non-operational vehicles in the parking lot. You might even get explicit about don't change the oil, or you're responsible for any fluids, leaking, for example, because then you get into a pollution issue
Right.
if you're not careful, and you can't have people leaving jugs of oil in their parking spot or next to their parking spot. So,
Exactly.
yeah. All right, Chris, you want to take rent and fees?
Yeah, so rent and fees, again, this will probably be in your lease as well, but for regarding timely payments so that you can ensure and reiterate that they need to pay their rent and associated fees on time, and any late payments may incur penalties, and refer back to that lease agreement. But again, this is one of those things where, yeah, you just want to reiterate it just to make sure that they know what their expectations are, or what your expectations are for them.
Okay.
And then utilities, same deal, pay your utility bills promptly, and unpaid bills may result in service interruptions, whether that's coming from you or from the utility themselves. But in any case, as the property owner, if they don't pay their utilities, and in a lot of places, the owner is ultimately responsible for that. So you want to make sure that they are on top of that as much as you would be. So.
Right.
And then the next one is plumbing rules, which I'll let you.
Yeah, this is kind of my nemesis subject here. So plumbing rules, I think this is really important. And in fact, I've thought about having its entirely separate plumbing addendum where we outline, and it's just like the house rules as part of the lease signing process, because plumbing can be so problematic. In the last year, I've had people break dishwashers, I've had burst pipes, I've had clogged sewer with wipes. And so anyway, it's on my mind. So here's a list of things that you could include kind of under plumbing rules. Proper disposal, don't flush non-biodegradable items such as wipes, sanitary products, or cotton swabs down the toilet. Only toilet paper should be flushed. There's even like, toilet paper that's super degradable. And, there are some plumbing systems where that could be indicated. So. Yeah. Grease and food waste. Avoid pouring grease, oil, or large food particles down the sink. Use a strainer to catch food scraps and dispose of them in the trash. Chemical usage. This is another pet peeve here. In old buildings with cast iron drains, I tell my tenants not to use Drano or any chemicals because they generally don't work, or they don't work for very long, and they eat away at the old plumbing. Right. So if you've got ABS plastic drain pipes, that's one thing. They're pretty impervious, but what the language I've got here is limit the use of harsh chemicals in drains and toilets as they can damage pipes. Use biodegradable and plumbing safe cleaning products whenever possible. I think that's good, but you may
out there. Say there are some out there too that work, pretty well. So you can
point biodegradable.
Yeah, you can, or the plumbing safe, chemical or products, and you can even point them to those ones that work.
You could, yeah. Drain cleaning, regularly clean sink and shower drains to prevent clogs. Consider using a monthly enzyme-based drain cleaner to keep pipes clean. I don't know about that one, but yeah, it's a consideration. Leaks and drips. Report any leaks or dripping faucets to management immediately. Do not attempt to fix major plumbing issues yourself. This is both like water damage, dripping under a sink, or can ruin the bottom of the cabinet, or your dripping faucet or running toilet can cost you a lot of money in water. And along those lines, toilets, if you hear water running in the toilet tank or see water movement in the bowl, report it to the management as there's likely a leak. Pipe insulation during colder months. Ensure that exposed pipes are insulated to prevent freezing. If you're going to be away for extended period, leave the heat on at a low setting. That's really important, actually. My pipe burst this last winter. Probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had one unit that was empty and there was no heat on. So I think that allowed it to get cold.
Now, you're not saying that the tenant should insulate those pipes. You're going to insulate those yourself, in advance, but you're going to reiterate that basically don't take it off. And
right.
And then along the same lines, as far as if you're going to be away, it's a good idea to keep that cabinet door open if those pipes are on an exterior wall, right? So then the heat gets into the cabinet and keeps those pipes from freezing.
Right, which minimum should be probably 55, I'd say. Yeah. Yes, generally, no, I'm not thinking that a tenant would insulate, but if in a single family home, I think you do run into situations where people are a little bit more responsible for things. So for example, they might be responsible, and this is something that I think I'll add, for making sure that the insulated hose bib covers go on and stay on. Anything that could have come off during a warmer time of the year, I think it'd be okay to require them to make sure that it's in place. Yeah. That's more what I had in mind. Dishwashers and washing machines. Follow manufacturer's instruction for proper use. Avoid overloading these appliances and clean the filters regularly. And I'll get into that a little bit more later. water heaters, report any issues with the water heater and do not attempt to adjust the temperature settings without approval. That's actually in a lot of leases now too. It's saying it's set at 120. Don't turn it up and burn yourself.
Right.
And lastly, on plumbing conservation practices, be mindful of water use. Turn off taps tightly after use. Take short showers, and fix any minor plumbing leaks promptly, or really it's report any leaks promptly so that they can be fixed. So
and I think especially if you're paying utilities, especially that water, it's going to cost you if they're taking 20-minute showers. So
it's one of the biggest variable costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along the lines of plumbing, what I often will do is point new tenants to a particular type of plunger that I think
really
particularly better than others. Yeah, there's a lot of times it's after the first time it clogs and they don't have a plunger, and I said, well, you should get a plunger. And there's this type that work really. There's a certain type of plunger it's got like the little little flange or whatever. And
bellows on it.
Yeah, and it creates a little bit of better suction, better vacuum in there.
Maybe we got a link to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love them. Anyway.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Okay. So the next category relates to smoking. Again, this might be in your lease, but no smoking policy. If you're going to have a no smoking policy, and you let them know that it's not allowed on the property, and then again reiterate their guests are not allowed to smoke on the property, and you might have a statement in there in terms of where they are allowed to smoke if there is something that you have set up, or if it's no smoking within 25 feet of the property or something like that. Whatever the case may be, you can adjust that, but that's something that you want to put in there. And then you got to mention something about enforcement as well. So what happens if they are caught smoking you come over there and you smell smoke coming out of their apartment? What's going to happen? That's fines or potentially eviction or whatnot.
So I include all forms of smoking, including I'm explicit about it, including vaping and it being of any substance, because marijuana, just because it's legal, people may think that they don't smoke cigarettes, they're non-smokers, but they smoke marijuana. And so if you want to exclude that, then you need to be explicit about it.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. And then appliances. So, appliances can be confusing, but I think it's good to let them know that it's their responsibility to know how all the household appliances work and that they know how to use them correctly. It's always a good idea to hang on to those manuals you get when you buy them, and you can even just put them in a binder or in an envelope and leave them there so that they have them and they know how to use it, and they don't misuse it and they don't do something that's going to make it break. And then if necessary, they can contact management for assistance. But and along the same lines, you can outline what the best practices for certain appliances are, as far as like with an oven and stove, that they need to clean spills immediately so that they don't build up, and they should use oven safe cookware. So if you've got something that might potentially get scratched or damaged by different types of cookware, and then remind them to turn off the burners when they're not using them. Refrigerators, again, same thing, to remind them to clean up spills so it doesn't stain, doesn't give off odors when you got spilt milk in the bottom of the fridge for days or weeks or months. And then little things as well, like to not block space between the unit and the wall so that it doesn't overheat and you can get airflow behind it. Similarly, and I think I've talked about this before with baseboard heaters, don't put stuff right in front of you. It could be a fire hazard. Dishwasher, if there's a specific detergent that needs to be used for that, so that it doesn't flood or cause other damages in the systems. Again,
different water reacts differently with different detergents, and sometimes you'll have I've had people have bubbles coming out of their machines as they're using too much.
Exactly. Yeah, and then remind them that they got to remove the scraps. Again, we go back to your fishbone story that you talked about. That's not acceptable, and they need to remove the scraps before they use it. And their responsibility if the dishwasher breaks because of that. And clean filters, things like that. Washing machines, they're not overloading, that they know what the proper load size is, and the correct detergent usage, that they can clean out the drum and filters periodically if that's on them, that needs to be done. The dryer, the same thing, clean that lint trap to prevent fire hazards.
Every time.
Every time, exactly, and to ensure proper ventilation. And again, like you talked about before, with anything getting damaged or not working properly, to let a lot of times those dryer vents become unhooked or whatever, or develop a crack in them, and that's going to cause a bunch of moisture inside the unit if that's where the machines are. So they need to let you know if that happens as well. So microwave safe containers. Obviously most people know this, but again, it's good to remind them, right? And that especially if that's an appliance that comes with the apartment, you don't want to inherit that microwave that's got spills and splatters that have been built up for the entire time they've been living there. And air conditioning and heaters, same thing, clean those filters as recommended. if anything unusual is happening, to let you know and let management know if something's not working right or if it's making funny noises, because that's often the first step towards something going wrong. And a lot of times when the heater doesn't go used, over the course of the summer, then you turn on again in the beginning of the winter, it's things like that to pay attention to and to let you know if something is unusual.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I'll take barbecues, smokers, and outdoor burners. This could be kind of a broad, anything that's got a flame, basically. And it is something I find that is often not in a lease, and I think it's good to specify. So I guess I would say barbecue smokers and outdoor burners may not be used within 10 feet of the building, and they must never be used indoors. Shouldn't have to be said, but you might want to just be explicit.
Well, you
Safety
see that every
precautions.
year when all these cold spells and people try and take them inside, and then they just sort of forget. I think a lot of times, or maybe they just were never told. So it's a good idea for their own safety.
Yeah. Yeah, or even like people run into a problem with there is those propane heaters,
Yeah.
and they can start fires, but they also, carbon monoxide poisoning, can have
Mhm.
carbon monoxide poisoning. And along those same lines, indoor flames. This is a tricky one because it gets into, how people live, but candles and incense. So you could say something along the lines of when using candles or incense, always place them on a stable, heat-resistant surface. Actually, I think that's a really good thing to say, and probably most people know, but it's worth saying. Keep them away from flammable materials and never leave them unattended while burning. Extinguishing them, I don't know that I would get into this. It seems a little bit too basic, but always fully extinguish candles and incense before leaving the room. Actually, I think maybe I would say that, or going to sleep. Yeah, I think that is good just to be explicit. Use appropriate methods to ensure they are safely put out. Ventilation, ensure proper ventilation when using incense to prevent smoke buildup. Avoid using in small enclosed spaces. And as I was putting this together, I considered saying, no incense. And that might want to be your policy. I'd rather that people didn't burn incense, for a number of reasons, fire as well as odor. And fire safety, have a fire extinguisher. And this is a good spot to say, there is a fire extinguisher under your kitchen sink, which is generally where I provide one. Or, have a fire extinguisher or fire blanket easily accessible. Know the apartment's fire safety equipment and procedures.
And don't remove it, right? That fire extinguisher is provided under the sink. Don't remove it or give it to somebody else or whatever.
Well, actually, that's a good thought, because yesterday I was having a furnace worked on, and the technician said, "Oh, do they have a carbon monoxide sensor in their unit?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I have one. I use the plug-in battery backup ones." And then he checked when he was up there. I don't know where it went. It may have wandered off between tenants, and I didn't catch it, which is my bad. So now I got to get a new one. What I'm going to do is replace one of the smoke detectors with a combination carbon monoxide sensor and smoke detector, because it's not something that can get unplugged and taken away mostly by accident. But
Yep.
it's also a super important safety device anywhere there's combustion,
Yep.
heating, or cooking, or any of that type of things. It'll alert you if there's carbon monoxide building up,
Right.
which is deadly.
Yep. Okay. So, and lastly, I think we'll just wrap up with sort of compliance and enforcement. After all the rules that you have in there, you also got to specify what happens. So, adherence to the rules. And so you put something in there about failure to adhere may result in fines, eviction, or other legal actions based on the lease agreement. And then communication, if there's any concerns or disputes, that they bring those to you in a timely and respectful manner. And you'll then at that point be able to take care of it. So, yeah, I think that it's again, like Eli had mentioned before, you might not need all of these house rules.
You might need some others.
Probably won't. Yeah. And then there might be others you want to add, but we'll have a downloadable document here for you. You can remove things as you see fit or add things if you need to as well, but it's a good place to start. So,
Yep. Yeah. Take this as a starting point. Think about how things are configured, how people interact and share things, and come up with guidelines and rules for people to live there successfully. That's the gist of it. So.
yeah, and I think I've talked to people where they have given their tenants on day one a binder with things like this and the manuals in there and instructions and house rules right on top, so that it's there in the unit and it's always there and they can refer to it as necessary. And maybe they put it in the cabinet and never look at it, but it's there. It's something that they might see, and
Right.
And a lot of people just might email a PDF of it as well. So either way. But.
Yep. Or have it signed. I would include this as an initial page as part of the lease signing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for watching, and please remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get notified when we put out a new video. So we'd love it if you do that, and if you come back next time. Thanks very much.
Thanks again.